Hello again. Welcome back to your 5-minute devotional stop with me, Amy Phillips. I'm on a journey moving from fear to faith, and I hope you'll join me for Just Believe.
Well, hello, dear ones. So recently I was reading the story of Peter walking on the water. Or maybe I should say Jesus walking on the water and Peter attempting to follow in Jesus' footsteps. But in Matthew 14, we see it's late at night. It says shortly before dawn, and there was a wind against the boat where the disciples were most likely all awake, trying to row, keep the boat together. And as they're rowing in fear, who knows who saw him first, but somebody sees a figure on the water and they cry out, "It's a ghost." And in verse 27, Jesus immediately said to them, "Take courage, it's I. Don't be afraid." "Lord, if it's you," Peter replied, "tell me to come to you on the water." "Come," he said. Then Peter got down out of the boat, walked on the water, came towards Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried out, "Lord, save me." Immediately Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. "You of little faith," he said, "why did you doubt?" And when they climbed into the boat, the wind died down, and then those who were on the boat worshipped him, saying, "Truly, you are the Son of God." Now, one interesting thought about this is that the disciples were career fishermen. They knew about storms and water. You'd assume they know how to swim, and yet it shows here they had some faith in Jesus, that they're looking to a carpenter, right? The one who'd spent most of his life on land. Here he comes walking on the water, not afraid, at peace with the situation, as if rough waves and water was nothing to him. And they had some amount of faith in him. They knew he had power, or they wouldn't have been his disciples at this point. But I can only imagine their thoughts as they saw him on the water. I mean, their jaws must have been on the floor of the boat. But what interested me the most was the words Jesus speaks to Peter. "You of little faith, why did you doubt?" This Greek word, "you of little faith," seems to have been coined by Jesus. He uses it only 5 times in the Gospels, and only when speaking to his disciples. The Greek is oligopistos, which means little faiths. Oligos means little or few, and pistos means faith or trust. So oligopistos, little faiths. Jesus used this phrase when he was challenging his disciples either to believe something difficult or do something that would need courage. And I began to think of all the things the disciples had been experiencing up to this point. I mean, this story comes on the heels of the feeding of the 5,000. Before that, they'd experienced so many miracles. Peter's mother-in-law's fever had vanquished. The paralytic received a new body at the pool of Bethesda. Demons had been cast out. People's lives are restored. And lepers are having their disease broken off their bodies. And this and more is what the disciples have seen with their own eyes. And now they're brought face to face with another miracle. And Jesus speaks to Peter, "You of little faith." I feel honestly like he said this with a smile on his face as a term of endearment. You little faiths. He didn't say it to the crowds, only to his beloved disciples. And maybe he was frustrated with Peter's lack of faith. We don't know. But he was reaching out his hand. He was offering himself to Peter. He was calling him up to believe in him. He was saying, "Believe in me, not the circumstance in front of you." We can sometimes be weighed down by our own faithlessness. We may not even know we have little faith, but we feel afraid or we're lost in a situation. And Jesus comes to us with kindness in his eyes. "You little faith, why are you doubting? Get up, take hold of me. I will hold you up." This reminds me of John the Baptist, who in his early days seemed to fully trust that Jesus was the Messiah. I mean, he'd seen the dove land on Jesus. He said, "I baptize with water, but there's one coming who will baptize you with the Spirit and fire." And still he asked, as he sat in jail in a moment of trial, fear all around him, "Please, disciples, will you go and ask Jesus, are you the one, or should we expect someone else?" So even John the Baptist doubted at that moment. I can imagine that Jesus, in response to John's disciples, thought, "You of little faith, it is I. I am the great I am. I can do all things. Go and tell him what you see. The lame walk, the blind see, and the dead are raised." So maybe today you need to remind yourself, if you're looking at the waves stuck in fear, or you recognize that you need more faith, Look yourself in the eyes today and say, you little faith, right? Have grace for yourself right where you are, for He has grace for you. You little faith, look at Jesus. Remember what He's done. Remember what you've seen. He is able to calm the storm. He is able to meet you on the water. Hear His love poured out over you. Trust in me, little faith. I have everything you need. Do not fear, friends. Just believe.
Thanks for joining me today. I hope you feel encouraged and strengthened. If you want to connect with me, you can find me at amybphillips.com. See you next time.